Welcome back to the second segment of The Notion. And of course, we're speaking with Broderick Mervyn. Broderick, everyone in their youth have got to go through kindergarten, primary school, and secondary. I feel like I'm going to have a lot of fun here because tell me a little bit about your primary school days, where you went to school, anything you remembered about your teacher, and in particular, if there was, any mischief you got up to that. It's probably something you want to share. But at the same time, also the very things that you learned at that age.
My goodness, man. Quite an interesting and sort of a time travel back to those years ago. Well, I think during my primary school days at Mount St. Mary's.
So you're basically a Western boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So during those early days, I think quite of an interesting one, I would say, in the sense that, very, I think everyone would know, very articulate, vocal, mischief at times, I would say, very quiet to some extent. But overall, those are sort of the building blocks of life, I would say. I think vividly what I remember in my primary school days was just understanding that there was so much to look forward to. Because on the last year during my primary school days, it was like a daunting feeling, okay, we're going to another level. So where do we go from here? But also realizing that life is as such, I think, and it started from there. One of the fondest memories that I had in primary school that really started off the journey was on two fronts. One was, if I recall, we had had a project, I think it was in class 7 or 8, I'm not too sure. But we had a project based on sort of doing about a report concerning, our recent field trip to the meteorological center. And of course, that time the computers had just slowly been introduced, and of course it was just getting a sense of printing and pasting. But on that occasion, one of the strongest lessons I learned was whilst we couldn't get it printed, and I was really being hard on myself because I wanted, when you're there, you really want the best to come out. Not so much the perfection, but rather just making sure it comes out the very best. And particularly my mother and I, we actually handwritten that project. And I said, man, how are we going to do this? And it'll be so obvious that we've handwritten this project. And mind you, this was class 7. And my mother said, don't worry about it. When you submit it, it'll be all right. And lo and behold, she was right. And so that was just like a lesson of how life is, that sometimes, we may think it'd be that big, but rather, if you start from the little things, it goes a long way. And moving then to secondary education, basically in the West, particularly in SVC, that was even another level whereby the challenges came about with it, okay, what subjects to pursue in.
Yeah.
That was decision-making spaces. So I was basically involved in the arts. So basically, knowing arts, that it's a very easy component, not so much tech science or so much agriculture. So it's more like it's sort of an easy breathing ride. But mind you, it had its moments. You had to, you had so much assignments that came with it. And we were in high. Then you have to remember the countries and very specifically, okay. For example, if it's Australia, okay, which places in Australia that you'll have special historical sites, whether it be Ayers, Uluru, or Sydney Harbour Bridge, or Adelaide, and those were the things. And I was saying, man, it's such a daunting experience to learn all of that and compare, let alone the dates of history. We're talking about South Africa history, Fiji history, American histories.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to take in at a young age.
What was your best subject?
Oh man, My best subjects, I would say, would be history and geography.
Okay, all right.
And because I think looking now and into the future of my journey, it's paid off because the countries that I've actually studied, and let alone that I actually, both in from the geography perspective, but also on the history side of things, I've gotten to sort of visit those places and
Nice.
just taken aback, said, man, I learned this in a classroom and now it's
Reality.
reality. So yeah, it's been a very interesting journey. But again, I would like to credit the teachers. I think from the start, the teachers play an important part because they actually molded us to become the leaders that we are today. Their role is so important, and I think for us as individuals is never to take not so much our teachers for granted, but more so like our parents, because they are the ones that actually support us, and I'm grateful. I've mentioned that, when deciding on the subjects, it was my parents gave us that free will to say, okay, do these subjects.
Oh, awesome. Now, Broderick, I'm just wanting you to take a step back. What do you think about education in terms of learning from when you started out to how it is today?
I think right now, with each generation, education, as much as it is important, but it has to move with the times. We were stuck with the usual blackboard, and they just slowly introduced the whiteboard. But I think if COVID-19 has shown us anything, is that you have to get out of your comfort zone. So if there was another pandemic, transitioning to online learning, then there was a demand as, okay, you need internet connectivity. So imagine you look at remote islands, or just basically areas that have limited to no accessibility to internet. How are you going to provide them with the learning? You can't just print all the text materials and drive all the way to those areas, because it's already a costly exercise.
Yes.
But we have to move with the times. So if we are living in a digital age, so I think right now it's not so much us fighting against it, but I think we have to learn to just be more flexible in terms of our learning and more resilient.
Awesome. Well, Broderick, we've spoken about your childhood. We've spoken about you elevating into primary and secondary. In our third segment, we'll delve a little bit deeper, and this is into the achievements of the now Broderick Mervyn.